I mean, are you tipping? Is it a restaurant or? Okay.
It's supposed to be $1 there, right?
Yes, lunar money. There's no lunar money in there, sorry. All right, so we are back and we are starting. So far, everything we've done today has been in code. No storyboard, nothing like that. We've done everything in code, all our UI in code, our view hierarchy is set up in code, everything in code. Our segue is in code, now we segue over to a settings view. Now we'll work on that settings view. On that settings view, we want to add a picker. On our settings view, we want to add a picker view. Okay? So let's go create a settings view file. So let's go create a view file. So new file, it's a CocoaTouch class, subclass of UI view, and it is settings view. Okay, so we have a settings view. Click next. Click create. Perfect. Okay, first thing we need here, we need an init with frame to set up the frame of the UI. We call super init with frame. We pass it the UI screen, .main, .bound, so it takes up the entire device's frame. Next up, we need to implement the required init, where we call super init with coder, init with coder, and we pass in coder. And we'll also go ahead and write our private function called common init, where we will add subviews. We'll call our common init, common init. So this is very similar to what we've been doing, right? We've been doing this code. So at some point, we could probably create some snippet, a code snippet of this, but I won't create the code snippet right now, right? I'll show us code snippets later in the week where we do not have to like type. We could just create a shortcut. So as I type in custom whatever it is, it will populate the boilerplate code. Because at some point, we'll be using that same boilerplate code for multiple subviews we create. But for now, we'll type it out. But in the next few days, we'll create what's known as a code snippet. A code snippet is some sort of code that you always write or that you typically write. So you're writing a shortcut for it in Xcode, right? So Xcode creates, or Xcode persists your code snippet. So later, I could simply type in some shortcut name, and it will populate my view. Everybody with me? But not today. Today we won't do code snippet, but know that later we'll create like a code snippet for this. We'll copy all that code, create a code snippet, and anytime we want to create some custom view, we'll just type in custom view, for example, and all those lines will get populated. Okay? That's what a code snippet does. But we won't do code snippet now, because we need to get practice here. All right, so we have common init, and what did we say we want to do? So we want to have a picker view. Picker view, call it picker view. Picker view is of type UI picker view. And here we're using our closure, call our closure, and let picker view equal to UI picker view, and return the picker view. So Matthew, we're looking for a term for this, right? So I came up with property, lazy property initializer. I slacked out the document. It's lazy for the lazy keyword here. It's an initializer. It creates the object, and it also returns the object. Okay, so our pick a view, that's it. That's all we have for now. Let's go ahead and set up the constraints for it. So we'll create a private func, and private because nobody needs to get access to our setup code here. So setup pick a view constraints. And what's the first step for setting up our constraints or setting up our view in code? Add subview, awesome. So we don't say view here, by the way. Like in a view controller, you would say view.add subview, right? But on the view itself, it has the add subview property. In a view controller, you cannot just say add subview. You have to say view add subview. Everybody with me? But I'm already in a view, so I'm not saying view.add subview. Okay? But in a view controller itself, you cannot just say add subview because a view controller is not a view. Everybody with me? Yes, sir. No. We'll just say add subview like we did before. I just want to show us the difference, like why we're saying, I didn't get the question yet about why we just say add subview. But in a view controller, you'd have to say view.add subview. Okay? But if you're in a view already, it's a view, so you just say add subview. And the subview we add in is the picker view. What's step 2? We gotta set auto resize layout constraints to false, because now we're doing auto layout. So on the subview we interested in, we say translates auto resizing mask to false. And if you do not do that, your constraints won't work. Everybody with me? Okay, so missing line 38, your constraints won't get activated. And next step is to actually set up the constraints. And we'll use NSLayout constraint.activate, which takes in an array of constraints. And knowing what you know about a picker view, how can we set up that? I want to center it horizontally and vertically. Actually, I answered the question already, so no need to do anything there. I know, you have started for lunch and that's what happens. I showed us the safe area layout, so I'm okay with that. I don't have to show that again, so that's fine. But what we after here, we have our settings view. Whoa. We after our settings view, and we will add our picker view in the center, and our picker view will have its rows. So this here is our picker view. And we have our back button, and this is called settings. What else we need here? I think I showed us everything so far that we need. Okay, we'll be doing more view code, so there's more things we'll show later, but that's it for now. Simple view, just a picker view, and the constraints will be, so here's our constraints. We'll center it horizontally, and we will center it vertically, horizontally and vertically, and that's it. That's pretty much it here. Because the height is the height, it's given. Perfect, let's go ahead and do that. So pick a view dot, if I want to center it horizontally, what am I after? Is it center X or center Y? Center X, very good. So center X constraint equal to center X. And that center X refers to what? The equal to here. What does this refer to? What view is that in relation to? Remember, auto layout is always in relation to a different view. So the picker view is getting centered to what view? Right, self meaning the settings view, correct? Right, everybody? auto layout always in relation to a next view. The other view in relation, picker view says I want to be centered, right, to my super view. So this here represents the super view, meaning our settings. So we said we want to center it X and we also want to center it Y, my comma. Picker view dot center Y constraint equal to center Y. Okay. And let's make sure to add our subviews or call our constraints. So here, setup picker view constraints. And that should be enough to test. Let's go ahead and test it. So navigate over to my settings, and I do not see it. Okay, what is happening here? Settings view controller, that's right. I expect it to just work, right? Okay, we need to go ahead, let's go back. Is everybody done typing? Okay, so we haven't added the thing to the view controller. We're stepping ahead of ourselves here. So in the settings view controller, we have no code for adding the view. I know we're trying to get it just working, right? Okay, so what do we need to do? We need to create some instance of our settings view. So we start off with private, and we say it's a constant, doesn't change. And we say it's a settings view, and we instantiate it with settings view. Okay. And we go ahead, we override load view, and we simply say view equal to settings view. We build, and now we could run it. And we click on our beautiful gearbox, thanks to a mini here. And now we have a picker view, right? Your favorite, I know that's your favorite gearbox. Do we see our picker view? We see two lines. Do we see two lines? Maybe? That's our picker view, believe it or not. There's no data, but that's our picker view. Cool? All right. Go back to the constraints. Cool? We good? Can we go back to the controller? Okay, so we now in our settings view controller, we added we have an instance of our settings view, and we set our view to the settings view. And now let's go ahead and, do I even need a teal right now? I could take out that color. I'll leave the color for now. My picker view, let's get access to the picker view. So configure delegate and data source of picker view. How do we do that? We have access to it. So we say settings view dot picker view. Did I make it private? Settings view. I just love to make things private, right? So make sure this is public. We need access to it. Right, remember, private, public, everybody? So make sure your picker view is public, so we have access to it in the view controller. As you just saw, if it's private, we do not have access to it. So let's go back to, in the settings view, change private to public on line 14. Cool? Very good. Perfecto. So now we have access to our picker view. And on our picker view, we have a data source, we'll say self. And we also have a delegate, we'll set to self. So at this point, again, very similar to our table view, it needs data. That's why we have 2 lines. There's no data there. So we need data. We need data. Okay. Like we've always done, we'll create an extension to conform to our UI picker view. So extension on our settings controller. At this point, most of the code will be similar to what we've been writing. So UI picker view, data source, and we also need extension for settings view controller, UI picker view, delegate. And what's the main data for our app? The main data for our app will be an array of strings of color names. So the main data, we'll put our data here somewhere. So data for picker view will be colors, some array of strings. And here we have red, we have green, we have orange, we have, let's start off with red, green, orange, and blue, yeah. I had bubblegum here, I guess I'll put it back, bubblegum. Cyan, sky, white, yellow, and lime. You could add in more colors there later if you want to. Blue is sky already, but we could put blue here too. Blue. Okay. So here, what do we have? We have number of components. How many components are we returning here? We'll return 1. Think of the components like rows, not rows, sorry, columns. How many columns are we gonna have? We'll have 1 column, right? We'll have multiple rows of those items we just put in there, but for now, we'll have 1 column, right? 1 column. And the colors will represent the number of rows we have. So our next data source item is number of rows. And here we'll simply return colors.count. Right? So picker view, right? Trivial to set up, very similar to a table view. Number of components, you return how many components, meaning how many columns does your picker view have. In our case, we have 1 column. How many rows does our picker view have? It has, based on our colors array, it will return the number of rows here. So let's actually run the app and see what's going on. So if I click on my settings, what's happening here? We got question marks. Anybody knows what's going on here? We are returning the correct number, looks like. I need the title, right? So when you come to that part here, you need to implement the delegate to return the title for each row. Everybody with me, right? So here I need to return the title for each row. So here, type in title for row. So type in title for row, and this function comes up, title for row at component. And what are we returning here, Mr. Christian? Colors at row, right? So now it returns the string for each row, right? And this has to be some string because here it's returning an optional string. So you have to return a string. Our array happens to have strings in there, right? So it simply returns the string in that array. Run our app again. Click on our gearbox there, and now we have our colors. Look at that. Great. Cool. Great. How are we doing? Everybody has the pickers being rendered? Pickers being rendered with names? Okay. Let's take a tangent over to our assets folder. I know I've shown this like ad hoc here and there to different people, but now let us see it together. So we'll create colors in our assets. So navigate over to your assets folder. Navigate over to your assets folder. Navigate over to your assets folder. What's going on? Okay. Navigate over to your assets folder. We all see the plus sign at the bottom. Do we all see the plus sign at the bottom? Yes. Okay, click on it. Do we see where it says new color set? Yes. Click on that. It gives us a default white. Okay, everybody? Now let's go ahead and rename this color to white. Right? It's white. And then we'll go ahead, we will option drag. Click on add. And click on new color set. You see new color set? Okay, perfect. The third option from the top. And then that creates a new color set for you. And then we started off with white, right? So we have our white color, great. Now let's move to red. So you could edit the color name by clicking on it once. So option drag to create multiple color sets. Option drag to create multiple sets. Or just drag it, either or, sorry. Okay, so we have white, let's go to red. So click on anyone that doesn't have, like red has, we need to change red's color. So click on the box, the color box. Click on the color box, and let us go to, let's zoom in here. Click on the color box, show color panel. Where's my thing? Click on this box here. Where am I? Oh, the thing is in the corner, sorry. Your panel should come up. Do you see your panel? Do you see your panel? Everybody? Okay, let me make this a little bigger. Do you see, click on the color panel. Sorry, click on the color. Yeah, I know, I got that. And then that's gonna come up, and click on the show color panel. Show color panel. Show color panel, Mel, right here, show color panel. Cool. All right, now this is red, let's go to red. There's crayons. You don't have to use the colors we use, by the way, you could use your own colors. But here I wanna go to crayons, or I could go to more specific colors. Crayons here. I could click on my crayons, I could change where I get my colors, Apple TV SDK, Watch SDK, iPad, yada, yada, yada. I'm choosing crayons, right? Crayons is where I want to get my colors. And there's no red. Okay, doesn't really matter. You could just pick a color, right? So I have red, I'm moving on to green. Just choose a green. Doesn't have to be dead green, doesn't really matter. Click on the box and click on the color you want. Let's just choose 3 colors for now, red, green, and blue. Red, green, blue. I won't go through all the colors for now. So blue, and I'll choose some blue color. I'll choose some blue color. Great. Again, I'm not going to go through all the colors. For now, we have 4 colors. We have red, green, blue, and white. Okay? Right? All right, so let's go back and edit our picker view so it doesn't get random colors it doesn't have. So go back to our settings view controller, and we have red, green, blue, and white, right? Yes? Okay. Just keep this simple for now. Take this out. 4 colors. Okay. Next step. As the user is going through the picker, we want to change the background color. Right? So let's go do that. Where is a good place to do that? Where is a good place to get notified when the user selects a different row? Any ideas as to the method we need to implement on the UI picker view?
What was that?
Where do I get notified when the picker changed? Did select row. Thank you, sir. So we'll go down to our delegate method or our delegate extension, and we'll say did select row. Thank you, Christian. So this method, did select row, gets called every time the picker changed, right? So when I change my picker selection, this method gets called. The method is called did select row at. So here we'll change the background color. So let's get a color. How do we get a color? Anybody? How do we get a color?
UI color. UI color. Name.
But how do we extract the color from that selection? We have our colors, right? On our colors, we say row. So now we have a color name, right? Or I'll call it color name. Right? And now Christian says, I want to change the background color. I want to change the background color of the view. Mel, how do I change the background color of the view? View that background, very good. So view that background color. And now, Christian, you were saying with the UI color?
Yeah, UI color, name.
So Christian says we could instantiate a color with UI color named. And for the named, we pass in our color name. For the named, we pass in our color name. Okay? So we first get the color name from the array. In that case, if you stop on green, it would get green. And then green would get passed for the color name. And then the UI color named would get the assets name. Everybody? It gets that name from the assets folder, very similar to an image. So go ahead and run the app. So go to our picker and change stuff. We have blue, we have white, we have green, and we have red. So far, so good? Okay. We could go one step further. When the thing loads, we could take whatever color it is and show that. That'll probably be better, right? Because when we come to it, for example, when we go here, it doesn't show the correct color, right? So we could fix that. We could fix that. Anybody has any clues as to how to fix that? So when I navigate out and I go back in, it's on red, it should show red, correct? How do we do that? How can I get that to work?
UI color stop first.
Right, so I'll go with what, right, so May says I could use UI color, colors that first, or color 0 in that case, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So in view.load, we'll set that up. In view.load here, I'll say view.background color equal to colors, or UI color, I don't want to do everything in one. That might be a bit confusing. I'll say color name again here. And I'll say colors at index 0. And I'll say UI color named color name. Okay. So let's try that again. I go to my settings, and I have red. Okay? Perfect. Say that again? It just happens that my picker right now doesn't work with user defaults, right? And then it's always going to start at the first index, right? Later, when we add user defaults to this application, I would need to get to that index. For example, if I saved blue as my color, I want to go back to blue. But for now, there's no user defaults. I default to the first index, which is 0, which happens to be red. Cool? Very good. All right. Perfecto. Any questions? Any other questions? Okay, so our app works right now, but we have one more element to do. We'll add, yes, Mel? Your picker view is not showing. Verify that your settings, I've seen it some places where we're not calling our setup constraints in our common init. So make sure that your common init is calling your setup constraints. Start there, and then go back to your controller. Make sure you load in the view, in load view. Yeah. So you've gone through this one, and you added it. Like the common init.
I understood that.
I think it's only here you need to use this. Here is for storyboard, here is for programmatic UI. I think it's a good custom to use both. Yeah.
So this is storyboard, this one.
Yeah.
No reservations. Okay, how we doing? How we feeling? We feeling good? Feeling hot? I know, it's hot. Shania is here? You could see her eye. Her eye just like came alive. Wow. I want to play that in slow-mo.
Oh, they have the slow feeder.
Yeah, man. Slow-fi, yeah, we need that. Because you see her in her eye like, what? It's perfect. All right, last step of our application, let's do user defaults. User defaults, what is it going to do? When I change my color to green, for example, I want it to persist. So when I go back here, it's green. Okay? When I close the app, it should be green. Everybody? Cool? All right, so let's go through those steps there. Go to settings, view controller. Where is a good place to set my user defaults? The user comes to settings, they change some value, they go to settings, they change to blue. Where is a good place to capture user defaults? Did select row, right? Very good. So in did select row at right here, we will save color name to user defaults. We'll save color name to user defaults. Okay. To keep this app simple, we'll create, where am I? Settings, where am I going to create this? Let's create some struct right here. I will call it app keys or app key. And we have a static, let, call it app color key is app color. So we have an app key struct that has one constant. Again, always try to capture a constant here because we don't want to go app color everywhere, like literally app color everywhere. So we use a constant. Okay. Cool. Okay, so we said we want to save to user defaults right here. We could use a wrapper, but for simplicity, we'll just not use a wrapper here, and we'll simply access user defaults, that standard, that set object. In our case, what's the object we set in? What's the object we set in? Color name, right? So we set in color name, which is a string, and the key will be app key dot app color key. User defaults one line. Yes, we could have a wrapper here, but we're just keeping this app simple. At the end of the day, knowing how to use user defaults is more important here, especially in Unit 4 where user defaults is important, and that's what we started with persistence, and it will be on the assessment. So here we save the color name to user defaults. Great. Okay. Where do I retrieve it, right? Where do I retrieve it is next. Did we all type in this line here on 59? Can we go to the main view controller? Okay, let's go to the main view controller. So you're writing this application, you've saved the user defaults value. Where is that place that you want to remove that value or retrieve that value? Give me the function. Where do you want to place that function? Or where do you want to place the logic to get the value out of user defaults? I'm in the other view controller now. I'm in the main view controller, but where am I writing that code? View did load, right? So let's write it in view did load here. Let's write a helper function called, update app color, for example. Update app color. We need to first see if there's a color from user defaults. Dot standard. Dot object for key. Object for key. What is our key? Our key is app key dot color name. Else we'll have something else happening there. Okay. And here I'll say color name. What type is color name right now? It's a string, right? That's the final answer for the Jeopardy round for $1 million. What is the type of color name? Option, click on it. Option, click on color name. What type? What's that? Any, right? Any. Be careful there. When you store something into user defaults, when you extract it, it's any. You need to, what? You need to, right? You need to typecast it to that type you expect. Here we expect a string, so we need to typecast it to a string. Without typecasting, color name would be any. Okay? Awesome. So here we have a color name. Now we could go ahead and set up our view that background color. Yeah, view that background color equal to UI color named color name. If there's no color, that's fine. We don't have anything to do because the thing is orange by default. But I think we tired of orange for now, right? Maybe. There's a system background which is white-ish, not this one. System background. System background. We'll not do anything in the else statement because we have a default color already on line 26. So if it has a color, it will go ahead and override the default color. So we'll call update app color here. Okay. So let's run it. Actually, that's good. That's a good test right now. Click on my settings, go to blue. Okay, it's blue, perfect. I go back, oops. So it's not blue. It should have been blue, right, everybody? Right? How can we fix that? Where can I call update app color that will always check for the app color without using like delegation or anything else? We could use delegation, we could make it update automatically, we could do online segue, we could do a lot of things. But what view lifecycle can I put update app color in so that every time it comes back, it just checks?
Oh, view will appear.
View will appear. Okay, so according to Oscar here, we'll take this out of view did load and we'll put it in view will appear. Super, view will appear. No. And then here we just call update. View will appear always gets called. Right? So there's no reason to put it in view did load when it will still get called in view will appear. This is not an expensive operation, so it's okay to have it in view will appear. Everybody with me? I'm not saying reload table view every time I come back to my view will appear. Right? So this is fine here. It just checks in user defaults if the thing got updated. Right? So know what view will appear does and know what view did load does. View did load gets called only once, called on initial load only once. View will appear gets called all the time. All the time you come back to that view, view will appear gets called. So when we click on the back button, we go back to our main view controller, view will appear gets called, it checks user defaults, is there a new color name, update the color name. Yes, sir.
Does everyone's red work?
1 second. So update color name, checks for the color name.
Yeah.
Let me run it again and see what's your question here.
Yeah, you have to move.
There's some more logic we need to do there. But first let's check to see if we go to, for example, blue. When I go back, is it blue? Right? It should be blue because in our view will appear it calls our update app color. Right? Good. Christian, your question?
So, go to green, for example.
Go to green,
Go back.
go back,
All right, now close that and restart it.
close the app, restart it. So we're testing persistence here. It's green.
I messed it up because the first.
I think what you're saying is if I go here, it's going to be red. Is that your question?
Yes.
Right? That's your question there. Because we are saying always load the first one. And we don't have any update, any check, anything like that. What are we saying here is in our settings view controller, we're saying in our view did load, just always upload the first one. We're not checking user defaults. Everybody? I'm actually going to leave this for you to do because we're going to end like right now. Right? It's like, that's like one of the things, right? Like, There's maybe a couple lines of code there. But you have user defaults already. We could store it in. But one more step is, how do I get the thing out of user defaults instead of hard coding a number? Everybody with me? Christian?
Yeah.
Cool. So here, what are we doing? We're hard coding a number, correct? Do we agree? Here we hard coding the first index, because that's how we started building the app. But now we're storing into user default. So what should I be doing?
Saving,
We saved already.
oh, we did this for the.
Now I just need to retrieve.
Yeah, we did this for ours too.
Right? That's it. So I'm going to leave this because we need to get better of user defaults here. So I'll leave this as a to-do. To-do, when you get back, so to-do, fix this bug. If I go here, well, it should be green, period. That should be green, right? Because right now, user defaults knows it's green, right? But in my settings, there's a bug, okay? Right? Everybody sees that? We could reproduce the bug, we know what's going on, we get to fix it, right? Yes? All right. Any other questions so far? At this point, we have done enough programmatic UI to let us work on our lab, okay? Again, our lab is very similar to a lab we've done before. It is the color, I might have it here somewhere, maybe. It's this app, right? Up to you with the UI, and there's more functionality you need to add in there. But the basic functionality is you have some view, you have some buttons, and you have to guess the color. Everybody with me? And you're keeping track of what the score is and all that stuff there. Okay? Let's see. So I could keep guessing. This is green, this is red, this is blue, this is green, whatever, this is red. Boom, I die, right? And here, you could have an alert, you could have whatever you want to do. The user could play again, whatever. At this point, we have enough UI chops to like, okay, I want to do my own UI and make my thing fancy, whichever I want to do it. But always like keep priority there. You don't want to spend too much time on one lab. Do MVP. If you have time, you could work on extra UI features. Everybody with me? Right? So that's the lab. And a bonus, if you could do this in a stack view, that would be awesome. It's not in the lab, it's not a requirement, but this is a stack view of buttons. Stack view we did in your auto layout, right? Anybody remember stack view from auto layout, unit 2? Was it unit 2 or unit 3? Right, Benvenido, see Benvenido. All right, he remembers the lab as well. The auto layout lab. When we kicked off auto layout, we did stack views using auto layout. But you could use stack views here. You could have a stack view of buttons, okay? Not a requirement, but better for constraints. You have a stack view, you could dump anything you want in there, it lays out itself. Beautiful thing. So, cool? But do MVP first, whatever you get to work first, make it work first, then after if you have time, you'll keep optimizing. Cool? Any questions with anything so far? Right? We good? Everybody's good? Aaron, can you double check, is there for the lab, is there an Xcode project or they're just cloning, forking and creating their own? I just want to talk about the SynDelegate, because if there's an existing project, maybe it doesn't have SynDelegate on the lab, right? Is there? Okay, perfect. So you create your own project, you will have a SynDelegate. Everybody with me? And we know how to set up, we've seen this morning how to set up our SynDelegate to get our own view controller in there, right? If we want a navigation controller, we know how to set that up. We have our UI navigation controller, which sticks in a root view controller. Everybody with me? If you want to set up your view this way, what I'm using here is a multiplier. I'm saying based on the height anchor of my super view, lay out my my main view, the main view here, the color view, call it color view. Lay out the colors view height with some multiplier. It could be 40%, 50%, whatever it is. Everybody with me? Yes? I'll actually show you guys what I'm talking about. I see a little bit looking at me like, what are you talking about, dude? Color guessing game. And what are we looking at? We're looking at color. We only have one view. I'm talking about multiplier. Right here. So this is the line of code I'm talking about. You have the color window. The height of the color window is constrained to the safe area layout guide. Do we see that? We're making notes of that, right? So line 73 is what you want to do if you want to have your height or whatever you want to do constrained to some multiplier, like a ratio. The ratio we had in auto layout where we say some view is laid out 50% of a different view. This is the code where you have a multiplier. Not a constant, a multiplier. Everybody? Right? So please use that line of code for your color view, okay? Or your color window, whatever you want to call it. And here I'm saying 40%, and I'm using the safe area layout guide. I'm not using the entire height, right? I want it to be within the height of the safe area, okay? Cool? That's the only thing we did not exactly do, but again, there's many different constraint anchors, but this is a very useful one using a multiplier of the super view. Everybody? All right? Okay. Cool. All right, so we'll stop here unless we have any other questions. We did some good programmatic setup today. We started off in the scene delegate. The scene delegate is where we really set up our main view or our entry view controller. Our entry view controller is a navigation controller. Our navigation controller has its main controller. The first one that gets called is the main view controller. Right? Main view controller has its own view, which subclasses from UI view. Right? Main view has a message label and it has a reset button. So everything we did today was in code. You guys are code developers here and also storyboard developers. But this week we're only focusing on code. Cool? Great. Okay, so we'll stop here.